Housing is a fundamental need, yet many young people in Nigeria, especially in Abuja, struggle to find affordable housing. With rising rent costs, limited financing options, and an increasing demand for accommodation, securing a comfortable and budget-friendly home can seem like an uphill battle.
From high-end apartments in Maitama to shared accommodation in places like Lugbe, Kuje, young Nigerians are actually facing tough times when it comes to housing. Getting affordable housing, is it a reality or is it just a dream for the average Nigerian youth? Welcome to the morning show, Good Morning Africa, on Housing TV. My name is Ubong Usoro, and today I'm blessed to be with the very insightful and ever vibrant Maimuna. Good morning, Maimuna.
Oh, good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm very fine, thank you.
I hope you had a good weekend.
Yes, I did.
Good to be here. Thank you so much. I feel so excited to be here this morning, and welcome to our amazing viewer to the Good Morning Africa show. Today we'll be discussing youth and affordable housing, exploring the challenges young people face in finding decent accommodation, available housing schemes, financing options, and practical solutions.
Yeah, is Abuja housing market designed just for the rich? Those are some of the questions we'll be looking at, and we'll be having professionals talk to us, because it seems like low-income earners are struggling daily to get accommodation, and it seems every year or every 6 months the rent cost will just increase. If you're paying 500,000, you'll now be paying 1 million naira. Those are paid. Is anybody paying 50,000 for rent?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Any longer. I don't think so. Rents are really, high. And one major issue a lot of people are complaining is, getting access to affordable housing. Houses they can pay out of what they earn for without, breaking the bank, or without sweating, or without, going to bed and thinking, oh, tomorrow my landlord is coming, to knock my door, and I don't think I have that money. And to be very honest with you, Nigerian youth have been, in this issue for, for quite some time now, for a very long time. When a lot of them get to finish their service, they don't want to go back home. They just want to get a job and, start earning something for themselves so they can make a better living and then, support their family as well. But then when you speak to a quite number of youths, the first thing they tell you, accommodation is a problem. And, even while we were, doing our introduction, we stayed at Abuja. Funny enough, it's not just Abuja alone, all over Nigeria, accommodation is very expensive. Talk about Lagos too as well. A lot of Nigerian youths are complaining. It's one thing that they cannot even, fathom as they are right now. Because you see a very little tiny room of a self-contained going for
700,000,
1.5 million, 1.2, and then you have someone that is earning just 100,000 naira in a month. So how do you want, that young boy or that young girl out there to be able to pay their rent? That is just rent. We've not even, looked at acquiring a home for yourself as a Nigerian youth. So it is one issue that needs to be addressed, and I don't know how. Because when we get to speak with experts, they tell you that, youth are not keen into the mortgage system. How many of these Nigerian youths are even aware of or know what mortgage is?
I think that's where the information gap comes in. So lots of people don't know provisions have been made where they could get some of these services, and it becomes a problem because getting housing as a youth, people feel that it's when you are 60, 70, that's when you're supposed to get an apartment, but it shouldn't be so. You should start young, and that's what we are going to be discussing about today on the show. We are going to take a critical conversation with an expert, somebody who's been doing lots of jobs in making sure youth can get affordable housing. And trust me, you don't want to go nowhere. Thank you very much. We'll be back after this short break. Don't go nowhere. Housing TV, and the program is Good Morning Africa.
Visit Housing TV Africa on YouTube and click on the subscribe button. Subscribe to Housing TV Africa to stay updated on latest happenings in Nigeria's housing sector. Follow our social media pages, like and share our posts. On Facebook, Housing TV Africa. On Twitter, Housing TV Africa. Instagram, Housing TV Africa.
The fourth step in assessing affordable housing is understanding the market. Abuja is divided into high-cost areas like Asokoro, Maitama, and Wuse, and more affordable areas like Lugbe, Kuje, and Nyanya. Young people often have to choose between proximity to work and affordability. So
the biggest challenge is actually cost, because as a young professional, maybe you're being paid 150,000, and you have to, think about it. Are you going to live in Asokoro, like you mentioned, Maitama, where you get a self-contained apartment, a shared apartment for about 1.2 million naira, 700,000, and
you keep saying 700,000. I do. It's not for Maitama level. If you want to get a self-contained in either Maitama or Asokoro, and trust me, with a very small size room, 1.52 million. If you're talking about 700, maybe you're looking at the suburbs in the FCT. But if you're talking within the FCT, there's no way you can get a self-contained.
I'm not going to argue with you, because of course you know better. So it becomes very difficult for these entry-level salary earners to get accommodation, and that's why we want to discuss this topic today on the show. So in addition to all of these schemes, we have, even when we have the federal mortgage system, most youths don't understand. They don't know what it means. The information gap is actually very wide, and we have somebody who's been doing something in that particular regard. Bringing the information about mortgage, financing, and all of these things to the youth. And I think it's a good conversation that we have this morning.
Yes, it's just like while we were doing our introduction, we spoke about mortgage institutions, and then I told you that most Nigerian youths don't even, have an idea or an insight of what mortgage system is and how they can access mortgage system, to get access to affordable housing. But then, even if they know, we have the high interest rate at one side, staring at them there, and, they're wondering, how do I go about this with what I earn? So yes, what you said is right on track. Now, financing is a major barrier. Some young people rely on cooperative societies, family support, or savings to afford rent or buy land. However, there are alternative options like rent-to-own schemes, affordable housing estates, and government-backed housing programs. Before we continue, let's take a short break for some updates. We'll be right back.
Hello viewers, welcome to another beautiful edition of I Can Make It, and I can assure you, you will surely make it. It's beyond a phrase. It's a statement of faith, a statement of resilience, a statement that is telling yourself that I can go over whatever is opposing me. And that mindset is very, very important. In life, many people pass through so many problems. Let's take, for example, a woman that has been married for so long a time and she is not having issues. She has visited many physicians, many gynecologists, and they've told her that one problem or the other are the reasons why you are not able to get pregnant. And she keeps telling herself, I can make it. I can become a mother. I can carry my own children. I will have my own children. Look, as she continues with that positive drive, with that, motivation, she will definitely come across a solution that God has placed in her way. And she will no longer be called barren. She will become a fruitful mother. So that mindset is what I want all of us to have. Against all odds, you will be able to make it. In life, let's take for example, in business, you can start a business and the business initially started doing well, and after a while the business wasn't doing well again. You injected so much money, you employed so many people, and yet the profits are not just turning in. I want you to look at the business and keep telling yourself, with God on my side helping me to source the right information, I can make it. Most times, what normally stagnates the progress of men in life is the lack of the right information. So the moment your minds are made up that I can make it, I am moving forward, I will get it right, God will divinely connect you with either someone that can help you or an information that you lack that business needs. And by the time you apply those knowledge and those information, you definitely see that your results will change. And that is what is most important about life, our results. Someone out there is waiting to see the outcome of your labor every morning, every afternoon, every evening. You and I, we cannot afford to fail. And that is why I'm here this day to encourage you that you will be able to make it as long as you start seeing yourself that I can make it. Solution has always been before problem. There is no problem in life that doesn't have any solution. If you see a problem and is saying that it defers all solution, then that thing is not a problem. So I want you to approach life with this mindset that solutions have been before problem. So any task that you are engaged in right now, always see yourself that I can make it, I can succeed, I can excel, and I can assure you, initially it may be rough, but as you have this mindset and you are determined and you are resilient, you are doing the right thing at the right time, you are not procrastinating, you are not lazy, you are hardworking, I can assure you, you will definitely make it. Thank you so very much.
Welcome back. We've actually examined some of the challenges we face as young people in securing affordable housing. I said we face as young people because I face this challenge too. So
I think we all do.
Are you sure?
Of course, yes.
Okay, so we have an expert. We've been joined by an expert who will help us make sense of this discussion.
Of course, yes. Now joining us in the studio is Basi, the Executive Director of Hip City Innovation Center, an organization focused on sustainable urban development and housing solutions. He will be sharing insights into the housing crisis and what can be done to make affordable housing a reality for Nigerian youth. Welcome to the Good Morning Africa show, Mr. Basi, and thank you so much for joining us. I like the fact that you're a young person, and you know, the subject at hand is affecting every young person. Even in okay, we're starting from in the studio, right, Ubong?
Yeah, absolutely. It may not be affecting him.
Well, you might be right. Exactly. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Mimuna, and thank you, Ubong, for having me.
All right, so Nigeria has a population problem. The housing deficit is said to be about 20 billion. The other day I saw you with the Minister of Housing, our very own friend, Daginwa. And let's talk about this. How, what's the plan for the youth in Nigeria? What's the plan for them getting housing, getting accommodation, and getting shelter?
All right. Thank you once again for having me. Like you rightly mentioned, housing is a huge challenge, and it's not just a Nigerian problem. Housing and issues of homelessness is a global challenge, and that is why at the UN Habitat level, concerted efforts are being made to see how to rally national government to invest more in housing. And this is also because there are a lot of benefits that adequate housing does for a country, its economy, and also the people. All right. Unfortunately, in Nigeria, we have what we call many informal cities, if I have to use that word. And the reason why we have a lot of informal cities is because not so much thinking is put into how we develop an area. Okay, the usual practice is that government decides to create road, and with road infrastructure means that commerce automatically begin to spring up around road corridors, and before you know it, empty lands around those areas begin to gain value, and before a short period of time, houses are springing up, even before government is able to put the necessary infrastructure within places. So this is also why we have a lot of informal cities, and Abuja always prides itself as the only planned city in Nigeria. But even at that, you would also find out that in the last 30 years or 40 years since this area became the Federal Capital Territory, that the spate of urbanization is not matching the level of infrastructure. Housing delivery is not matching the population, and oftentimes you hear people say, oh, we have a lot of housing, empty housing, but the truth is it's not affordable. But yeah, our visit to the Honorable Minister was to first ask that the ministry considers the setup or a constitution of a youth advisory board, all right, to interface directly with the ministry, bringing the perspective of young persons. As we all sit here, not many of us know what is going on when we talk about urban development. It's a new concept to us. A lot of Nigerian youth do not understand this. And even at the level of government, a lot of attention is not being put into bringing all of the stakeholders who live within the city to now really say, let's plan. The usual practice is that government brings in professionals who are just professionals in their field, but do not have a background to social dynamics. Okay, so if you're building a city, you should have not just a town planner. You shouldn't just have an engineer coming to sit down and making it fanciful. No. Urban development is beyond aesthetics. It's about functionality. It's about efficiency. So if you're building a city, you need to realize that in this city, we would have adults, we would have young persons, we have persons with disability, we would have children, okay? And we would also have senior citizens live in the city. So if you're building a city, all of these experts would have to come in, sit together on the table and look at the functionality beyond the aesthetics. If you're building a road, we don't want a flyover road if it doesn't serve purpose. Okay, how, with all of the flyovers that we have, how accessible are they to persons with disability? Right? If we're building a fanciful city, how effective, how efficient are the roads to our children? Our children can cross our express. And you know, the unfortunate thing about Abuja is that the way schools are distributed, you find a child living, say, in Mabuchi and is schooling somewhere in Wuse and have to cross the highway every other day. It's risky. And these things are also because when we're planning, a lot of attention is not really put into bringing all of these stakeholders to bear. So because we're discussing young persons today, our visit to the minister was to say, let's have a youth advisory board, so that as the ministry is sitting down and considering how do we open up new urban areas within across Nigeria, that the young persons are able to also sit on the table and say, from the youth perspective, we think that these issues or this infrastructure should be here or there.
Okay. Oh, that's a very good one. Thank you so much, Basi, for sharing that update with us. So now let's come back to the topic at hand, which is youth and affordable housing. Yeah, I'm going to start off with landlords, which they are not really helping matters at the moment at all, and we're looking at payment upfront when it comes to paying your rent. Most landlords will, stamp their feet on the ground to say that, oh, you must do, an upfront payment before I give you any of my accommodation or my house. So, and this is making it difficult for young persons to, to solve their housing issue. So, what policies or solutions do you think can be introduced to help address these challenges?
Okay, in terms of policy, I think at the last time when some landlords took the issue of paying 2 years upfront, I think it was the Lagos State House of Assembly that came out very strongly to condemn it and say let's return back to the annual payment. And then I think there were also conversation around, do we make it a monthly payment system? But looking at our own reality and how erratic our society is, I would not sit here and say that a monthly payment system like we have in other developed climes would serve the Nigerian youth. It's not practicable, so it's not even a conversation, because in Nigeria today you can be in a job in the morning and by evening you're out of that job. So what becomes of your faith if at the end of the month you cannot you don't have enough resources to pay your rent. It means that we would even have more homeless people on our streets than we currently do have. At least with the 1 year period, you're able to save, plan, and all of that just to meet it. So I would jettison the idea entirely of our monthly payment system, because we don't have the system to support that. In developed climes, you already know government job sites, available job sites, that if you're out of job in the morning, you could go on that website and try to apply, and if you're not able to, government gives you some sort of subvention to run you through a particular period of time. We don't have those systems to support us. So the yearly system, for me, I think is still very much in place. However, I think that government needs to stamp its foot on the ground to discourage property owners from taking more than a year. It's tough when you're saving for a year. Imagine how much difficult or inconvenience it would be if you have to save for 2 years. So one, I think that one of the key things young persons must do and government must do first is that the annual payment system, at least for now, it serves our purpose, and our system is still very much in line. How can young people afford rental payment with ease? I think that with the trend, technology, it's also becoming increasingly easy, especially for those who have salaried jobs, where that you can plan. So there are certain platforms, I don't want to mention names so that I don't seem to be free adverts for them, but many of these fintech companies offers you several saving models where you can lock up your savings, and you can't take out of that system until the month that you say is your due month's rent. And then some commercial banks are also doing this. There are some banks who also now have rental payment with ease systems. They allow you make some certain savings, and if by the time your rent is due, what you have been able to save is not the complete amount, you're able to also draw some loan from the bank to pay your rent while you continue with your savings. So I think that these are options that young persons should begin to adopt to be able to pay their rent with ease. If you save your money in the bank, and with the way Nigeria is today, it would be really difficult for you to have some high level of discipline. I won't be hungry, and then I can access my money in the bank. But if you have a system that locks that money in, and then, or you even give a mandate to your bank, I'm sure that that's also something that people do. You can give a mandate to your bank to say, if your salary comes in every 26th, you say, okay, the moment my salary drops, take a percentage of it into this account. All right. If you do that, then you already know that if your salary is 150, like he said, and you're saving 30,000, when your salary drops, what you would see and can access will only be 120, because automatically 30,000 naira is being saved up somewhere. Okay,
let me just allow that, because you've made some very beautiful submission. We know that many young people in Nigeria, they don't have jobs. Yes, even talk about. So that was for people that are employed already. What now happens to millions of Nigerians who are not employed? But I'm going to be asking this question now. We have the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. We have the National Housing Scheme. How have you been able to, with your work in advocacy, rally young people to take Maimuna have said something before we started the show, that some young persons don't even know that there's some support system they could get. So how do we bridge the information gap? How have young people been able to access, is it subventions, subscriptions from the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria and the National Housing Scheme?
Okay, that is some work for many of these institutions of government. That's also something that they need to do more in terms of public engagement. I think they are doing some work, but they need to up their game by ensuring that more people are aware. Platforms like yourself can also provide them the leverage to reach more people. But beyond that, what we do also is to engage with young persons and try to understand what their challenges, their everyday challenges, and then provide these opportunities to them. For the National Housing Scheme, I know that it's not just for salaried earners alone. There are also a portfolio for informal, those in the informal sector. So all you need to do is try to, go to their offices, get the necessary paperwork done, sign up. They would access how much, even if you work in the informal sector, there is an average of revenue that you make every day. So the professionals within those offices would sit with you, do an analysis of how much you make on an average, and then try to give you a more suitable plan that suits your income stream. As an organization, it's also a challenge for us that we need to reach more young persons with this information. But one thing that we would do very strongly this year, and it's already work in progress, is to see how we would set up a youth housing cooperative. That's something that doesn't happen, okay? So with the youth housing cooperative, it means that more young persons can make contribution into it, and then those resources would be used to either purchase properties and all of that. It's I wouldn't don't question me on this. It is still
I actually want to question you on that.
it is still work in progress. We're still fine-tuning, but it's something that we think that its right time has come. When we met with the minister a couple of week back, one key thing we asked was that we should also have a youth housing scheme floated by government. This is because if you look at the housing needs of young persons, majority of young persons just need a studio apartment, right? So if we have a youth housing scheme like we have for many of the other professional bodies, we can look at the entry age into those property, okay, and what should be your exit age as well. So if you come into a city and you want to live in any of the youth housing scheme, certain data would have to be collected, from you to look at what age. If you're say 21, you should know that by the time you're 24, even if you don't want to leave, you have to vacate for other people to come. So those kind of systems are what we're still tinkering around to see what the best approach would be, so that young persons have a place where they are dignified, okay? My organization, we're always at the forefront of advocating against demolition and a forceful eviction. This is also because government, in all sincerity, and also recognizing the challenges of today, government isn't doing enough in terms of providing decent and affordable accommodation. So here you have people who need shelter, and shelter is a basic need of man, okay? We can't afford, we're talking about 700,000 naira, you're not able to find a decent studio apartment in a place like Asokoro, and Asokoro is even highbrow. I think some years back I went to visit a friend in Gwarimpa. Gwarimpa is like mid-income estate, and his room was practically under a staircase, and he was being charged an exorbitant amount of rent to live under a staircase. In fact, his toilet was so. Now people can't even afford that, because if you're earning 150,000 naira and then your annual income is how much? Roughly less than 2 million naira, yeah, or maybe 3. Let's say 3, yeah, roughly less than 3 million naira. That's your annual gross income if you take everything. But if other charges are being made, maybe you go home with 120. right? And then how do you save for your rent? How do you pay your transportation to your office and all of that? So it's a huge challenge. So those key things are what we're proposing and what you're working around. We don't do this because of the approach of work that we do. Our work is very always consultative. So we're not doing this by just sitting in our office to discuss and say, oh, this is what is best for a young person. In fact, last year, we did several town hall meetings with young persons drawn from informal or unplanned communities like Kabusa, Jahi, Mabuchi, and the likes. But this year, we want to engage more with young persons in Bwari. And the choice of Bwari is because Bwari is one of the fastest growing area councils, and its urban space is beginning to develop really fast. Okay, so Bwari is the next town after Amak. How do we ensure that we correct some of those mistakes in terms of housing needs for young persons? So before the end of next month, we'll be doing some engagement with young persons within the Bwari axis to understand what kind of housing do you need, what are your basic challenges. So it is all of this information that we would, at the end of the day, collate into what we call a charter, and then by the second or third quarter of this month, we would now bring in industry experts to now say, having engaged with young persons across several unplanned settlements in Abuja, these are their needs, and how do we solve these needs?
Okay, I'm going to take from you know, partly from what you said towards the end, and you stated that the government is not doing enough to provide affordable housing. But really, if you really look at it, you know, they will always say, can the government really do everything? You know, so this is where partnerships and collaboration comes in with private sectors. But I'm going to put this to you. Do you think collaboration and partnership with private sectors in the housing sector to provide afford, because for every private sector that will be in the housing sector is for gain of profit. Right. That's the truth. So do you think that that collaboration can really be totally 100% possible in providing affordable housing for Nigerian youth?
It is. It is possible, right? When you look at the factors of production, okay, you're talking about land. Land has a huge impact on the housing cost at the end of the day. How affordable and accessible can one get land today in a city, say, like Abuja, or in a city like Lagos, or in a city like Port Harcourt and the like? So how affordable and how accessible is that? If you and I go to, say, the lands department at FCT or FCDA to apply for a land, you would do all of the necessary paperwork, submit. Guess what? It would take you no time, because you can't predict when they would call you to say, oh, the minister has approved your land application. So land is in hot contest. Some persons have explored several means of acquiring land. So if government, by its design and paperwork, says land costs 1 naira, but by the time I finalize all the different processes of actually acquiring that 1 naira land, quote and unquote, from government, I have spent 20 naira. By the time I now begin to also develop the plot, you're looking at the material cost of cement in a country that has all of the basic ingredients, you know, to produce cement. We have limestone of the highest grade, okay, in several states of Nigeria, and yet we're buying a bag of cement as high as 10,000 naira. Right? Who controls all of this? Who regulates the market? It is government. And that is why I'm really also happy that the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, I read in the news that in a couple of weeks or days from now, they will be engaging with big players in the construction industry or in the manufacturing industry of construction materials. Yeah. So if government relates with them, understand what their challenges are, then the cost of housing by itself will reduce. So yes, government may not have all of the resources to build. Okay, partnership is necessary. Government can't do it alone. It is a given. But government needs to provide the enabling environment. Government needs to look at its policies. Government needs to look at its regulation. How do we regulate the sector? Because if I give you all of the resources to ensure that these things are within the reach of the average Nigerian, and then you go ahead to produce and take it out of the reach, I should be able to call you back and say, no, this wasn't agreement. And if you don't agree, government is law. You use the law and you sanction those ones who are, you know, erring or at the wrong side of the law. So government has a huge role to play, but in partnership with the private sector. But in doing this relationship, each party has to be transparent and each party has to be accountable to each other. So if government says we would make land titling or land available, okay, government has to live up to that obligation. If the developers or the investors also say we would build this house to this specification at this time and all of that, they also have to be accountable to government. All right, and at the end of the day, government must also not then come back to look at the investment, the commensurate investment that each of the investors have made and what the return on investment should be, so that it is not overly inflated. We have a lot of properties that are inflated. You're building a 5-story or a 5-room duplex and you're costing it at 3 billion naira. 3 billion naira. When a CBN report some years back said more than half of Nigeria do not even have up to 500,000 naira savings in their account. It makes mockery when you put all of this puzzle together. It makes mockery of the entire system. It means that there is a gray area that no one is talking about. There's a gray area that we're not exploring. So government needs the investment of the private sector, needs the relationship of the private sector, but both parties have to be accountable. Both parties have to be transparent in their dealings.
Okay, so let me take you on this one now. In other countries, maybe in the UK and other countries, you don't necessarily have to live in town to work in town. You could live in, you know, some metropolis outside London, and in 45 minutes you always know that your train will be there. You catch your train, you get to work, from work you get on the electric train, but you've done several kilometers. How can we, you know, as new cities are opening up? You just talked about Buari as the new city center after Amak that's opening up. How can we get to have those infrastructures that will not put so much pressure on these places you mentioned, Asokoro, Gwarimpa, Maitama, and the rest of them? So people could live in Buari, people could live in Gwagwalada, people could live in Mabuchi, people could live in all of these places and still work in town without having to excessively pay transportation and all of that.
Okay, so there is a growing global conversation around what we call proximate cities, or in a very low term, 15-minute city. Abuja by itself is touted to be a 15-minute city, right? But that's not the reality. What does proximate city mean? Proximate cities mean that within 15 minutes, I should be able to access all of the basic services that I need within a 15 minutes distance. So one of the biggest challenge that we have from the government side is that we have concentric economic hubs or administrative centers. Every morning, people come from the 3 entrances into the city to one place or 2 places, if I have to use like in very generic term. Thousands of people commute daily to the Federal Secretariat, right? That is because all of the federal ministries are in the same place. Every morning, thousands of people commute to Banex or Wuse 2. That is very concentric hub. So the first thing first is let us decentralize. We live in a digital society where several government organizations can be anywhere and connected by the web.
Of course.
Ministry of Agriculture should be somewhere in Kuje or somewhere in Gwagwalada. And because even if we have the argument that sometimes the president needs them and all of that, it is just either the minister or the permanent secretary or any of the top directors that are needed, not the entire workforce. Do you understand? So if you decentralize this workforce across the 6 area councils, what you would do is that you're going to drive development to each of those area councils. You're going to force government, or government will be forced because it is in their hands. Government will be forced to provide housing schemes that are required by their staff, and their staff will be happy to stay. If I work, say, in one government agency, and then the housing cooperative that we were able to get is sited in, say, Kuje, and I work at the central area, do you think it would make sense to me? It would not. So sometimes people just buy those things for security purpose. Let me just buy. I will sell it off 5 years or 10 years down the line and make more money. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is decentralize our economic hubs and our administrative hubs. Take some government agencies away from the city center. That by itself will reduce traffic. That by itself will push these undeveloped or underdeveloped areas to become developed more rapidly. Then the economic hubs. What we have in Banex, can we have the same thing in Kuje, or within a close proximate distance between Kuje and Gwagwalada, so that they share that economic hub? The same thing too between Abaji and Kwali, and Amak and Buhari. Do you understand? If we do all of this, we will decentralize and we would find people wanting to stay, because people are always drawn to places of economic activities and where opportunities are. So if you decentralize all of these things that I have said in a very generic term, you would find out that these places would develop. Then lastly is also, how do we invest in necessary infrastructure? Okay, the area councils have a role to play, and I personally have a bitter I don't want to use resentment towards them, because they have opportunities to drive traffic towards themselves, but they are a bit lazy in doing that. Everybody is looking about or is looking towards land. Land in many countries is not something that people, pursue. It is the other system that you can build around it. What do I mean? If an area council like Buhari decides to say, for next year, one of our budget priority would be to fund public transportation, and they have is a foolproof transport system where people can turn up at a designated bus stop, say by 7 o'clock, and you're sure that, like you mentioned, that you're sure that if you get to that bus stop at 7, the man who is supposed to drive that bus is not still at home. Saying people, or the usual, I don't want to say Nigerian way, because that would be a general stereotype on all of us, but in our approach towards things. But imagine that Buhari invests in public transportation, either luxurious bus or whatever it is, that at 7 o'clock there are buses at several designated bus stops. You can hop on those buses, and then they take you to the city center, right? And then there's a midday bus, and then there's the rush hour bus. Three trips. Takes you out in the morning. There's by 12 you're sure that if you get to a bus stop, whether that bus is full or not, that bus will depart the bus shelter, okay, back to Buhari, and then makes the final trip maybe by 3 o'clock back to the city center to convey people. What this would do is that, because cost of housing in Buhari is relatively affordable than compared to what you have in the city, then people would begin to migrate towards Buhari because, one, that transport system is cheap and it's efficient, and they can always come into the city, which is work, and then they go back. Another thing we did last year was that we tried to work with several area councils. Some of them were not really interested, but what we wanted to do was to help them develop what we call area council development plan. That is something that they don't have. A development plan that is beyond just your focusing your eye on land. Land is the least of things. Imagine an area council. I'm here sharing a lot of money consultancy to them, but you can always consult us and then we would talk more deeper. Imagine an area council that decides to invest in internet access or internet penetration, go into a partnership with one of these telcos to say, we want to have the biggest fiber internet network within several, maybe a district or an area within that, and this you can do with maybe the real estate developers. Build a scheme, right, and have this very strong internet connectivity within your area council. It might not be across the entire area council, maybe within a designated spread. Now, this is what it would do for you. A lot of Abuja residents are remote workers. A lot of young persons that I know in Abuja are remote workers that rarely leave their houses when the rest of us are, in traffic. But what are the basic things that they need? High internet connectivity, access to power. Did you get me? So if you invest in high internet connectivity and then have small co-working space within the area council where there is guaranteed power supply and strong internet, why do I have to come to the city center? Because my basic needs are met. And then you would drive your local economy, because with people living there, they would go to your market and you're taxing people from the market. Malls would open up because people would want to shop. Okay? Businesses like the cinemas and the rest would want to come because you already have a huge market. Nobody wants to come to the city center. If you doubt me, of course, you do these statistics. If you come into the city center on a weekend, it's a ghost town.
Exactly.
True. It's a ghost town.
Everyone is indoors. Do
you understand me? So imagine that some of these services are at the area council level. Take, for example, one of the biggest retail shops do take this approach. I don't want to call their names, but I'm sure we know the guys I'm talking about. Where did they start? They started somewhere within the city center, but they understand that they also have a market in the neighboring towns or suburbs. So what did they now do? They opened one in Apo, and it was servicing the people. I'm sure by now you understand the people I'm talking about. And they were servicing the people around Apo axis. The next time they went to Lube and sighted another one, and I think that there's one now in Kuje, if I'm not mistaken.
And, yes, there is, of the other brother.
Yeah. So, but this is just a private sector person who is thinking that I have a market beyond the city center. Okay. What they have done is that all of those weekend shoppers that they would have lost are now going to their retail branches across. So let me stop here. But for the area councils, we're very much open to them. If you need more, there are ways area councils can generate their income or revenue stream, provide these things, and make more money for themselves.
Wow, amazing conversation that we're having. We're actually having an amazing conversation with Bassey, the Executive Director of HIP City Innovation Center. I hope I got that right.
Yes.
So we'll be right back after this short break. Don't forget, we're discussing youth in Nigeria and affordable housing. The program is Good Morning Africa. Don't go nowhere.
This is Housing TV Africa on YouTube and click on the subscribe button. Subscribe to Housing TV Africa to stay updated on latest happenings in Nigeria's housing sector. Follow our social media pages, like and share our posts. On Facebook, Housing TV Africa. On Twitter, Housing TV Africa. Instagram, Housing TV Africa.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is the Good Morning Africa show on Housing TV Africa. Still discussing Nigerian youth and affordable housing with the Executive Director of Hip City Innovation Center in Personal Basi. So I'm going to quickly move to the next question, which is, of course, housing expenses aside from rent. So what other hidden costs should young tenants prepare for?
I think we already know now. Agency and
I was actually waiting for him to call agency first.
That's
agency and caution fee.
Legal fee, caution fee.
All the fees.
And we keep the fees just keep coming. So those are things. Those are basically the fees that young persons would encounter when they go out to look for houses. Then the other, I think it's just around the pricing. There's this Nigerian notion of new house and old house. If you're lucky to find a new house, you're most likely going to pay more.
Virgin house.
Funny enough, when you see housing alerts that agents put out there, and then the caption says breaking, brand new hot sale. I'm like,
Virgin apartment.
So they call them virgin apartment, and then they charge you more because maybe there's a POP, there's a water heater that you might never use.
Water heater.
There's a wardrobe somewhere.
So there's a water heater. The bathroom and kitchen are tiled, you know. So those are just the things that jack up the cost of a rental property. But then I won't sit here and say that those things are not legit or shouldn't be considered, right? Because, you know, when we're talking about cost of production, if I tile my house, I tile the floor of the room, tile the kitchen, tile the bathroom, that's an extra cost.
But to be honest with you, that should be a standard house on a normal level. On a normal level. So I'm always amazed when I hear landlords or agents say, this house has there's tiles everywhere. I'm like, before, you don't want to put tiles in the house to start with, because that should be the standard to start with. So
that should be the standard, but who defines what standard is?
In a country like Nigeria.
Right? Standards are based on your purchasing power, but they are basic, what we call minimum benchmarks, right? That a house should have. What are the basic things that should be in a house? Not necessarily the aesthetics. Okay? You want a house with a livable space, not what some developers are building now, where the moment you put in your bed, everywhere is gone. That's not it. Also because maybe we're trying to manage or overmanage land. Okay, so there are basic things: a livable space. You should have a bathroom. You should also have a kitchen. All right. That's basically what constitutes a studio apartment. Okay, so those are basic things. Tiling mustn't be from top to up, all through tile. You could have a half tile and the room will still come out really nice. But when a developer or a property owner goes on to invest so much, like do the tiling from ground to top of the ceiling, of course he has incurred more costs, and he would also have to recoup that cost. But we do not, as a country, we need to really go back to the drawing table to understand what are the basic benchmark. If you're building a house, what are the basic things that should be in this house? We know those benchmarks,
irrespective of wherever the house
is, right? We know these things, and it's just about enforcement. Okay, but aside that is also that the people who produce the most of the houses are within the informal sector. Okay, people in unplanned settlements, because that's where the market is. A lot of the well-planned, well-curated, well-architecturally designed homes within the city center are empty. because it is way out of the reach of most Nigerians. Okay. So those are things that the hidden costs, we have talked about it. Those are some of the hidden costs. But something that young persons also look at beyond your actual rent are issues of transportation, access to other basic services, market, hospital, and all of that. Those are things that sometimes we really don't pay so much attention in calculating. Okay, because at the end of the day, if you sit down to calculate how much you spend, even if you live in a house of say 150,000 naira and you spend more money buying water, more money paying your way out of it, then you need to do some introspection, right, to say, if I'm able to meet these needs of buying water on a daily basis and transporting myself out, if I exercise some level of discipline, then I can also mop up some more resources and stay a bit closer, or find something within a certain range, within an area that you would cut down on that, because it is beyond housing. You also need to know what the implication is on your health. Doing that daily commute, we did a research, or I read a research, and then of course I did my own personal findings, that the average Abuja resident spends about 26 days on the road commuting every day. What that means is that out of 12 months, for 1 full month, 1 month and about 2 weeks, you're on the road, just coming from your house to your office.
That's research that if you look into the hours that we spend, because sometimes we are held up in traffic and all of that, and you go to work sometimes even on Sundays and on Fridays and on Saturdays. So there's a lot that it's actually saying something. But let me come to you now. How easy is it for a young person to get land in Abuja to start the project? Let's say we talked about some young persons are actually doing very well. Maybe they got a remote job that's paying in dollars for people, and the person is listening to you, and the person says, okay, I want to get a land. What are you advising? Should I go to the developers? Should I go to the community chief to give me a plot? What's the advice?
Okay, in Abuja, by the act establishing the Federal Capital Territory, all lands within the area is vested on the government, and the president as the one who now delegates his powers to the FCT minister. So the FCT minister administers land. Okay, so if you buy a land from a community chief in the FCT, you're buying that at your own risk. Okay, you're buying that at your own risk. Demolition and eviction is not something new. It's the daily reality of anyone who has lived in Abuja for some time. So if you go ahead to buy from a community chief, you don't have tenure security. So that is a huge risk. And it is also the reason why you find all sorts of houses in those kind of places. That's another conversation for another day, around issues of tenure security. So no, the advice would be that do not buy a community land, especially if you have the money to buy from a more legitimate source. But if you do go ahead to buy, also realize that there are risks involved. The government might come at any time and say you need to leave this, and of course that is now your risks. The other options, of course, is at the FCTA level. If you need to own a land, you need to go to the lands department. They have the process of land application. So there's a file, you have to open a file with them, and there are forms that you need to fill, provide certain information like your tax clearance, your data page, other information, and then you make a payment, right, for that application to be processed. I won't say how much it is. If you need to know the actual cost, you can visit the lands department, but that's the process. You go there, tell them you want to open a file, for land application. They will give you, you fill the form with all of the necessary documents that is required, and then make some payment, and that is it. When I was talking, I said when you make that land application, you don't know when
it comes out.
It comes out. It is between you and your God, or whatever it is that you believe in. Sometimes it can be like this because governments periodically also try to raise funds, right? So when government could just sit and say, oh, we need money, and then we're like, there are a lot of land application, and then government might just decide to now create a new district, approve most of those application. So luckily you might apply today, and tomorrow scenarios like that pop up and you get your land. But there are people who have applied for land for over 10 years and they don't even know what the status of the application is. Then the other people who also sell land, the Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development from time to time also have this housing scheme. One of such is the Renewed Homes initiative that is currently ongoing. If you want to make an application right now, it's on the portal, the website, so you can. Do
you think that those houses on the portal are affordable for
they are not
Nigerian youth?
They are not. I recently made an application to the Renewed Homes, and in commendation to them, there was like a very swift follow-up on me after I made the application, and then they were trying to market me and stuff like that. But I don't think it is affordable. For the Kasana one that is already selling, a two-bedroom, I was told, cost as high as 48 million.
Okay, so now I'm telling you that a one-bedroom is going for as high as 25, 26 million.
Yeah, I know.
So really, when we really talk about affordability, do you really think it's a reality? Because sometimes I try to understand how affordable these houses can be for Nigerian youths. Trust me, that I don't see any Nigerian youth at the moment working in any organization that can afford any of those accommodations on the Renewed Home Estate.
There are some youth, let's not categorize, but the percentage is very negligible. Maybe a 2% or a 5% of the entire.
So that's
but of course, let's not just blanket it. Sure. That's my point. It is not. When you put what the median income is for the average Nigerian youth, and sometimes I even try to extrapolate it beyond the Nigerian youth to say how many people in the employment of government earning legitimately, okay?
I like that word.
Can afford this property. Even, I dare say that even an assistant director, okay, cannot afford
what he earns
legitimately. That's the key word. Legitimately cannot afford those property. But it is what it is. It is what the government is offering as at today. More Nigerians need to engage in the process. It shouldn't be a hip city thingy or a housing African housing initiative advocacy alone. It should be a reality for all Nigerians, okay, that we need to engage with government. If we don't engage, that's the thing about just accepting things. If you don't make a move, it means all is well. That's the truth. If you don't make a move, it means all is well. So more Nigerians need to engage with government to ask more questions as to how did we get to value this property at 48 million, okay? Because I went further to probe when the agents reached out to me that I was going, I would make a down payment, I think 25% of the property value, and then they will spread it in 3 installments that I must pay within a 12 calendar month. And when she said that, I now asked her, I said, when you checked my application, did you see how much I put as my monthly earning? Do you understand? Did you see how much I put there? How am I supposed to? If you put all of my annual earnings in the next how many years, I might still not be able to meet this, right? So it's a process. The first thing is that there's an offering, but we need to engage. Your organization, I read a couple of days back, is doing this housing evaluation or empty housing stock across the nation. And part of your initial finding is that there are a lot of housing schemes that are unoccupied. A lot of it. And what is the reason? Unaffordability. Right? It's the affordability aspect of it. People cannot pay for these things. So we need to find more creative. And that is also why, you know, when you were talking about private sector or private sector government partnership, the mortgage system in Nigeria needs to be redefined. Okay? You can't call it a mortgage or a rent to own and you're giving me just 12 months. All right, maybe by design it shouldn't be so, because what the idea around mortgage is
10 years, 15 years.
Not necessarily about even 10, 15 years. It's also about your age as a person, as to when you access mortgage. How many more years do you have, active working years, which for Nigeria is between, I think, 15 or 18 to about 60. So between the time that you're applying for mortgage, if you're 30, right, today, and you have a steady income, all right, it means that you still have about 30 years to the end of your active years. So that should be a 30-year mortgage system, for instance, so that incrementally your money is being taken. That's how it is done in other places. It's flexible. It's not something that you're compelled to complete it within a 12 calendar month. But that's an option that is available. The federal government, and then there are other ones like in Abuja, there are FHA homes. Yes. Okay. Federal Housing Authority homes and then the Family Homes Fund. These are ways that individuals and youth can get. Then the developers as well. We can't take them out. The ones who already have completed some of these administrative issues with government and have developed. So you can do an outright buy. Some of them also offer these incentives like subscription models where you either buy at a carcass level, it's not completed, you buy and complete. Some you buy the completed, like the well furnished ones, and then some they just do the allocation and give you the prototype that you must, you know, conform to. So these are the options that young persons can take.
So today's discussion has highlighted the fact that while affordable housing is a challenge, young people can take proactive steps by exploring alternative financing, co-living options, and government-backed housing programs. Yeah,
the key to securing a home in Abuja is proper planning, financial discipline, and researching the best options available. But the bigger question remains, is affordable housing a reality, or is there more that needs to be done?
Mr. Bassey, thank you so much for joining us today on the Good Morning Africa show. Such a pleasure to have you, and thank you for, you know, sharing your insight about youth and affordable housing. I hope we're going to do this again some other time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Bassey. Let's keep the conversation going. Share your thoughts with us on all our social media platforms.
So that's it for today's edition of the Good Morning Africa show. Stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll see you again soon. You can watch this episode and subsequent episode by subscribing to our YouTube channel, Housing TV Africa. You can also follow Housing TV Africa on all social media platforms. Do download the Housing TV Africa mobile app on Google Play Store and Apple Store to stay connected. I am Maimuna Bagudu.
My name is Ubong Usara.
Have a good day.
Bye for now.
Bye.